Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my humble 40k channel. Today's tutorial is to paint up one of the new Primaris Ancients in some glorious Deathwing colors. I love how this model turned out, and will definitely make an impression visually on the tabletop. I used about 22 colors on average for this model, and most of those, even though it does sound like a lot, most of those colors were done very quickly, a touch here or there, so it actually goes pretty quick. As always, the list of the paints are down in the description in order of the application applied. Let's get started. First is an undercoat of Vellejo White all over the miniature. I have the model broken into 3 sub-assemblies, the body, the head, and the left arm area to make painting easier. And as always, you don't need an airbrush for this particular step, but I personally do it mainly because it leaves a much smoother finish for the model, especially when you're using white as your actual primer. Moving on to the actual base coats, on all of the armor, I hit it up with Ushapti Bone so that way it can have a nice bone / cream color look. I definitely recommend an airbrush for this because the application will be very smooth and easy to apply compared to using a traditional brush stroke method. On the head, I used Caliban Green to paint the fabric. This head is from the Dark Angel upgrade sprue sold by Games Workshop, specifically the non-Primaris sprue. When the spraying is done, next is Caliban Green again on all of the fabric on the body. Simply be neat and try not to get any on the armor. For the standard, I used Retributor Armor to color the wings and basically anything that is not the skeleton. In addition, don't forget to hit any of the various golden trinkets around the body, like the embedded skulls on the side of the panels. Then is Cadian Fleshtone, hitting this up on the face only. May only need a coat or two, but make sure that it's nice and thin and you don't want to overdo it. On the gun holster and the belt, I used Rhinox Hide to have a nice rich dark brown stand out against all of that cream colored armor. On the skeleton itself, I painted Leadbelcher. I was debating on whether to make this an actual bone color, but I felt that since the armor itself is already a bone / cream colored anyway, then having the skeleton be the same is going to make them blend together as opposed to having the skeleton be very visually distinct. So I went with silver to have a nice defining contrast compared to the armor. Moving on to base coating the smaller pieces, on the purity seals, I painted them with Mephiston Red. Then Zandri Dust for the actual parchment. On the top of the cloak for the head, there is a slight ridge where you can paint a different color. So I went with gray Seer to make it more noticeable and add a little bit more contrast on the head area. On the grip of the pistol, I covered in Abaddon Black. And the last of the base coating, the rock that this guy is standing on, I coated in Stormvermin fur. Now with all the base coating done, moving on to the washes. And the first wash is going to be on the face, will be Reikland Fleshshade. And this is going to also be used on all of the gold areas. Be careful when you're applying this, just simply don't want to go too crazy because you don't want to get it on any of the armor or any of the work that we've already done. But more specifically, the armor. Next is Nuln Oil, and this is for all of the silvery bits and anything that is not armor, like for example your robe or the belt or the pistol pouch. And the last shade we're going to do is a recess shade of Agrax Earthshade for the armor. Again, you want to go slow and you want to be careful. You're looking to hit up all the areas that shade would normally collect, but you don't want to simply slather it everywhere, as it's going to be a pain to clean it up later with all the coffee staining. So again, you want to take an artificial level brush or some very, very small fine tipped brush and then paint in that wash into the recesses. So once the shades are done, the model is effectively done, but if you want to take it a little bit further, then you can do some edge highlighting, and that's what we're going to go into now. Your first highlight is Screaming Skull, and this is going to be over all of the armor. This is going to be hardly noticeable on average, but will help define the bone panels a bit, because otherwise it's going to look like one massive piece. Then we're going to use Cadian Fleshtone again and on the face, but this time we're just going to be hitting the high points and avoiding the recesses. So maybe like hit up the lips, hit up the nose, the cheekbones, things along those lines. As the face is already obscured, there really isn't too much to be doing here. On the leather, I used Mournfang Brown for the edge highlight, so all of your existing brown areas. For the red, I used Evil Sunz Scarlit, especially for the red eye on the face. On the robe, I used Warpstone Glow on all of the high points. Like the armor, this is more to break up the cloth to give it some visual depth to the viewer. On the gold highlight, I used Liberator Gold. I admit that I'm using this step mainly for completeness, but the result was hardly noticeable even when I'm looking at it close up, so you may want to skip this step. For the pistol handle, I did a few quick marks with Administratum Grey, some Ushapti Bone for the parchments, and last, and definitely least, Stormhost Silver for all of the silver parts. And that's it. From here, you can put your transfers on and base your mini as you see fit. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, or at least you found it useful for you. Again, the colors used are down in the description below. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next video.